overwhelming, and I've done the complete life cycle, where I qualified as the love, the hate, the equilibrium, then the slide, where maybe only you notice it's sliding, and then the descent, where it's sand through the fingers, and then the without, or you ever really...
Yes, it was sort of overwhelming, and I've done the complete life cycle. The where I qualify it is the love, the hate, the equilibrium, then the slide, where maybe only you notice it's sliding, and then the descent, where it's sand through the fingers, and then the without. Or are you ever really without fame? Can you ever not be famous again? Everyone thought Justine Bateman would be the next big movie star after Family Ties. Instead, she disappeared from Hollywood for years. The reason wasn't drugs or scandal. It was something much more sinister. Her agents made her a deal she couldn't accept. They wanted her to erase part of herself just to keep working. She met with surgeons. She considered it seriously. Then she walked away from everything. What she revealed about that decision in 2021 started a revolution that's still changing Hollywood today. Justine Bateman was born on February 19, 1966 in Rye, New York. Her mother, Victoria, used to be a Panama flight attendant. She was born in Malta but grew up in England, so the home had a bit of a British feel. Her father, Kent Bateman, was deep in the acting world. He worked as both an acting coach and a theatrical manager, which meant their house was always full of actors, scripts, and talks about show business. It wasn't a normal childhood. Justine was only 2 when she was already hearing people rehearse lines and watching auditions happen in her living room. Then 4 years later, her little brother Jason was born, and soon he too would become famous. People in Hollywood would later call them a rare pair of siblings, both shining under the same roof, both shaped by that same chaotic, ambitious energy. By the time Justine turned 4, her life was already full of goodbyes. The family kept moving, following her father's growing business. They lived in Salt Lake City for a while, then bounced around California. She went to more elementary schools than most people do in a lifetime. 5 different schools in 3 different states before she even hit 12. That constant moving did something to her. She had to become a quick study of people, learning how to fit in wherever they landed. But behind that skill was a child who never felt like she belonged anywhere. She had to keep changing herself just to survive. And that need to adapt would later grow into perfectionism and a deep desire to stay in control. Things at home were even more intense than school. Her dad believed in strict training. By the time Justine was 8, he had her and Jason on daily routines, not chores or homework, but things like script reading, voice exercises, and networking events. Their dinner talks weren't about cartoons or school drama. They were about acting techniques and career moves. And what made it worse was that Kent kept written records. He would actually rate their appearance, their confidence, and share that with agents. He even timed their practice auditions, comparing them to each other. Jason got his first big role on Little House on the Prairie when he was just 10. That raised the bar for Justine. She was only 12 and already carrying the weight of expectations. The anxiety started there. She couldn't afford to mess up. Every move she made felt like a test she had to pass. Going to public school didn't help. Most celebrity kids had private tutors, but her parents thought regular school would keep things real. Instead, it just made her life harder. Teachers treated her differently. Other students teased her. Some said her parents were fake. Others thought the family was just pretending to be normal. She missed birthday parties and sleepovers because parents didn't want their kids too close to Hollywood people. In 4th grade, kids made fun of her by playing a mean game they called Hollywood Justine. They'd mimic her and laugh whenever she tried out for school plays. She learned to stay calm on the outside, but inside she felt like she never fit in. That feeling followed her into adulthood. Even years later, in friendly settings, she often felt like she was just playing a role. When she turned 13, the family finally settled down in Los Angeles. They picked the San Fernando Valley so they'd be close to auditions and events. Her father knew both kids were reaching the perfect age for teen TV roles, and he didn't want to waste time. Within half a year, Justine signed with the same agency as Jason. Industry people called it a sibling package deal. That deal gave them both better chances in negotiations. Justine was now fully in the game. In just her first 18 months in LA, she went to over 150 auditions. That number is shocking even today. Her father tracked every one of them. He kept notes about what casting directors said, who the other actresses were, and what Justine needed to improve. Their house in Woodland Hills became a kind of workshop. Kent ran acting sessions from their living room, and Justine had to attend all of them, even though she was already a working actor. At 15 in 1981, she booked her first professional job. It was just a commercial, but it was her start. What people didn't see was how hard it was behind the scenes. California had strict rules for young actors. She had to keep her grades up or she couldn't keep working. That meant she was always rushing, filming a commercial, then hurrying back to class. Most adults would have found it exhausting, but for Justine, it became normal. Every hour had to count. She learned to manage her time like a pro, balancing auditions and schoolwork. It was pressure she never asked for, but it made her stronger. She went to Taft High School in Woodland Hills. Everyone knew she had talent, especially in drama class. But she didn't get to enjoy being a regular teenager. While other students were going to prom or football games, she was on set or heading to auditions. Her teacher admired her natural stage presence, but most of her classmates hardly saw her around. She gave up parties and weekends to chase something bigger. By the time she was 15, she was making serious career decisions. That early sacrifice would later shape how she saw fame and what it really meant to grow up in the spotlight. Even with her talent, the path wasn't easy. Between 1980 and 1981, she faced rejection after rejection. She auditioned for several TV pilots but didn't land the roles. Hollywood can be cruel like that. It wasn't always about talent. Sometimes casting directors said she was too tall, or not the right hair color, or just not the type they wanted. It was heartbreaking. Each no wasn't just about her dream. It also meant less income for the family. But each setback made her tougher. These lessons in rejection would come in handy later when she landed major roles and had to keep pushing forward in an industry that can turn cold overnight. That same year, 1981, she finally got a small role on Little House on the Prairie, the same show her brother Jason had already made his mark on. Jason was just 12 but already had a regular part. Justine, who was older, was still struggling to get noticed. But working on that show gave her real experience. It wasn't just about saying lines. It was about learning how to act in a time period, understanding how people moved and spoke back then, and being respectful of every little detail. She watched experienced stars like Michael Landon closely. She picked up how to behave on set, how to adjust to different directors, and how to memorize scripts fast. All of that prepared her for what came next, her breakout role on Family Ties. In 1982, Justine Bateman was just 16 when she landed the role of Mallory Keaton on NBC's Family Tie. At first, Mallory was supposed to be smart. That's how the writers wrote her. But during early test runs, people laughed more when Justine acted like Mallory was a bit clueless. The network saw this and made a surprising decision. They rewrote the whole character, turning her into the typical dumb blonde type. It got laughs. It made Mallory popular. And it locked Justine into a role she didn't choose. She kept playing that version of Mallory for years. The strange part was in real life, Justine was incredibly smart. She even went on to get a computer science degree from UCLA later. But back then, the public only saw the silly version. By 1984, Family Ties became one of the biggest shows on television. In just 2 years, it went from being ignored to being ranked 5th in the country. Justine and Michael J. Fox had great on-screen chemistry, and their scenes together pulled in millions of viewers. She started earning $10,000 for every episode. Over 7 seasons, she appeared in more than 170 episodes. But behind the scenes, things weren't as bright. The show kept using the same plot lines. Michael's character, Alex, would mess up and then apologize. That was the formula. Justine wanted more than that. She wanted deeper, more emotional stories for Mallory, but that never came. As the focus of the show shifted toward Michael J. Fox and his character's rise, Justine's character got pushed aside. The show had started as a balanced family story, but it slowly became the Alex Show. Even the parents, played by Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter, had less to do. Justine's role got stuck in the same jokes: shopping, boyfriends, being clueless. She was frustrated. She wanted to stretch herself, but the scripts wouldn't let her. Even though the cast had fun on set playing with water guns and joking around, the tension was still there. Meredith Baxter wasn't happy either. She felt her role had been reduced, too. And while Michael J. Fox's movie career took off, Justine felt stuck. In December 1983, Justine won the Young Artist Award for Best Young Actress in a Comedy Series. The award show was hosted by her brother, Justine Bateman, and River Phoenix. She smiled, but it was also the start of something darker. Fame hit hard. Paparazzi followed her everywhere. Teen magazines wouldn't stop writing about her. She was only a teenager, but her every move was watched. She later said the lack of privacy made her miserable. Winning awards didn't protect her from losing her sense of normal life. She was becoming famous and unhappy at the same time. By 1984, Family Ties was pulling in over 20 million viewers each week. Justine had become a household name, but her world was getting smaller. Strangers constantly approached her. She couldn't go out like a regular girl. She had lost her freedom. Even though she was being nominated for Emmys and praised for her work, she felt like something inside her was breaking. She started thinking about the future, and it didn't look bright. During 1985 to 1987, while the show stayed at the top, Justine kept showing up. She filmed every single episode, all 176. But something was changing. In 1986, she did something big. At just 20, she directed an episode of the show. It was rare, especially for a young woman in Hollywood. That small moment gave her a glimpse of what her future might be. Behind the camera, making decisions. She also got 2 Emmy nominations in 1986 and 1987. When her directed episode aired, more than 30 million people watched it. But even with that success, she was carrying a hidden pain. Since the age of 16, Justine had been silently fighting eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, overeating. The pressure to look perfect was destroying her from the inside. She would sometimes run off set to make herself sick between scenes. Her weight was picked apart by magazines. Strangers judged her body. She once said her body image was horrible. She was filming scenes while feeling dizzy from not eating. And the world still saw her as Happy Mallory. Even while struggling, she made smart choices. In 1986, she appeared in serious shows like Saint Elsewhere. Her brother Jason appeared in the same episode. She could have taken movie roles, big money, offers worth 2 or 3 million, but she stayed loyal to Family Ties. She even did educational videos for teens. She wanted to show she cared about more than just fame. These serious roles proved she could do more than comedy. But most people in Hollywood didn't notice. In 1987, she was nominated again for an Emmy, but she lost to Estelle Getty from The Golden Girl. Many thought she should have won. She was only 21 and she'd been nominated twice for the same role, but the Emmys rarely took young actresses seriously. Sitcoms were seen as easy. Critics said comedy wasn't real acting, so she walked away empty-handed. Even though the audience loved her, what happened next was almost cruel. While her character Mallory was heading to college in the final seasons, Justine wanted to go too. She applied to college. She was ready to study. But Paramount Studios stopped her. They said no. She was under contract. She had to keep filming. The character got to learn and grow on screen, but the real girl playing her wasn't allowed to do the same in real life. Justine called it devastating. In 1989, Family Ties ended with a massive finale. Over 36 million people watched the final episode. It became the 9th most-watched series ending in TV history. Justine gave a powerful goodbye performance. Fans praised her. But the next day, the truth hit her hard. She was unemployed. She just finished the biggest role of her life. And now casting directors only saw one thing: Mallory. That one role had become her prison. She was afraid that no one would ever give her a different chance. In 1990, she tried to change everything. She took a risk and starred in The Fatal Image, a dark thriller filmed in Paris. She played a woman who witnesses a murder and gets pulled into danger. It was nothing like Mallory. She hoped people would see her differently, but even then, critics said they could still see bits of Mallory in her. The film didn't do well. Viewers just couldn't let go of the old image. After that, things got worse. She went to auditions, but people wouldn't see past Mallory Keaton. Casting directors didn't care how good she was. They labeled her as the dumb sister. One after another, projects slipped away. She spent a whole year trying out for shows that never got made. It felt like no one believed in her anymore. She had played the role too well. Hollywood thought that's who she really was. In October 1992, Justine Bateman played a medical student named Marty Hiller in a TV thriller called Deadbolt. In the story, she lets a man move in as her roommate, not knowing he's dangerous. Slowly, he controls everything in her life, even locking her inside the apartment. What made it even more haunting was how close it felt to Justine's real life. She was famous from family ties, but that fame had become a trap. Hollywood kept giving her the same roles: scared women, victims, helpless characters, and she felt stuck, like she couldn't breathe outside of what people expected her to be. Then in September 1996, she tried something different and joined a sitcom called Men Behaving Badly. She played Sarah, the girlfriend of one of the main characters. At first, things looked promising. The first episode pulled in nearly 15 million viewers, but behind the scenes, it was a mess. There were arguments about money and clashing egos. By the end of the first season in 1997, both Justine and her co-star left. The show barely made it to a second season and was canceled by the end of that same year. Another door had closed, and she was still trying to escape the shadow of her past fame. What came next was even more painful. In the middle of the 1990s, her agents told her something shocking. If she wanted to keep working, they said she had to get plastic surgery. She had always aged naturally, but Hollywood didn't want that. When she Googled herself, the top suggestion was, "looks old." It crushed her. She started thinking maybe they were right. Maybe she did need to change her face, but deep down, something didn't feel right. She thought about it, even met with 3 different surgeons in Beverly Hills, but in the end, she walked away. Years later, she wrote about this moment in her 2021 book, Face 1 Square Foot of Skin, saying it was wrong how women were made to feel broken just for getting older. That moment changed her. She started to speak out, refusing to stay quiet while others were told to erase themselves. By 1999, acting offers had nearly vanished. Justine didn't want to wait around anymore. She used her savings from family ties and took control. She started directing. It wasn't easy. She was investing her own money, hoping someone would care. Years later, in 2017, her short film, 5 Minutes, premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, then later at Tribeca in 2018. It was only 10 minutes long, but it said a lot about human behavior and social tension. For her, directing wasn't about fame. It was about survival. If no one was going to give her a chance, she would make her own. Then something surprising happened. In January 2001, she married Mark Fluent. He wasn't an actor or musician. He worked in real estate, managing huge properties for Deutsche Bank. They had met long ago in high school, but reconnected when Justine was going through one of the hardest times in her life. He was stable, kind, and made over $500,000 a year. That financial security allowed her to step back from the madness of Hollywood. She didn't need to go to every audition or red carpet anymore. She could just breathe for once. She wasn't surviving for the cameras. She was living for herself. In June 2002, their son Duke was born, and with him came a choice that shocked everyone. Justine said no to millions of dollars in offers between 2002 and 2004. She didn't want her child to grow up in the same spotlight that nearly ruined her. She knew what it was like to be famous as a teenager, and she didn't want that for him. So she stepped away. For 2 full years, she turned down every offer, stayed home, avoided interviews, and kept her family away from the industry. She had been working nonstop since 1982, and this was her first real pause. Many thought her career was over. But for her, it was a new beginning. 2 years later, in January 2004, her daughter Gianetta was born. But instead of joy, Justine fell into deep postpartum depression. For 8 long months, she barely recognized herself. She gained 40 LEBs, couldn't sleep, and had panic attacks that made it impossible to leave her house. At the same time, her brother, Jason Bateman, was having a huge comeback with Arrested Development. While he was winning awards and being praised, Justine was stuck in silence, trying to pull herself out of the darkness. Therapy and medication helped, but the contrast between their lives during that time was painful and impossible to ignore. In 2012, something happened that no one expected. Justine Bateman, once the teenage star of Family Ties, walked into a classroom at UCLA. She was 46 years old. The students around her were teenagers, most of them just starting their lives. But Justine wasn't there for fun or fame. She signed up for a tough degree in computer science and digital media. Her reason was simple. She wanted to prove she could do something completely new, something challenging, something no one thought she could. Back in the 1980s, when she was playing Mallory Keaton, Paramount had told her flat out she wasn't allowed to go to college. "You're under contract," they said. So she didn't go. But now, all these years later, she came back to do what she'd been stopped from doing. It wasn't easy. She struggled with learning difficulties and had to face students who looked at her like she didn't belong. She sat in classrooms filled with kids half her age. And while they were just beginning their lives, Justine was rewriting hers. At the same time, she was still working in film and television. But every day she showed up to learn code, take exams, to build something new. In 2016, after 4 years of hard work, she graduated at age 50 with a real computer science degree. That moment silenced a lot of people. A year after starting school in 2013, she appeared in an episode of Modern Family. It could have led to more roles, more money, more of the same. But she said no. She wanted something different. She didn't want to be Mallory Keaton forever. At night, she was still acting. But during the day, she was writing scripts, building apps, even working as a software engineering intern at Simon. She was learning to build things with Python and SQL while also turning down acting offers that didn't feel right anymore. She was choosing freedom over fame. In 2015, she launched something even bolder. She created her own production company, Section 5. But this wasn't just a place to make films. This was her way of mixing art and tech using everything she had learned. She started working on experimental short films like Zig, 5 Minutes, and Push. 5 Minutes would later premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2017. And that was just the beginning. In 2021, her first full-feature film, Violet, premiered at SXSW. It starred Olivia Munn, Justin Theroux, and Luke Bracey. But this wasn't just a movie. It was something deeply personal. The story was about fear and anxiety, and that quiet voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. Justine had written the script back in 2011, but spent 18 months fighting to raise money when studios rejected it for being too female-led. She didn't give up. She got it made anyway, and people showed up to watch it. In 2018, she released a book called Fame, The Hijacking of Reality. It wasn't a feel-good story. It was raw and honest. She talked about panic attacks, about losing her identity, about the strange way fame makes you feel invisible, even when everyone's watching. It wasn't about gossip. It was about truth. She described fame as something that takes from you but never gives back. Critics said it was one of the most honest books ever written by a former child star. Mary Louise Parker called it eminently quotable. Then came something even more personal. In 2021, she Googled her own name and was hit with a suggestion. Justine Bateman looks old. She was 42 when it first happened, and it stung. That moment started something big. Instead of hiding, she wrote a second book, Face, 1 Square Foot of Skin. She interviewed nearly 50 women about aging, beauty, and shame. And she told the world she refused to do anything to her face even if people didn't understand it. She said she looked in the mirror and didn't see what the internet saw. She saw strength. The book became a huge success and made people look at beauty in a new way. In 2023, she went on 60 Minutes Australia and said something that shocked everyone. "I just don't give a... I think I look rad." She talked about how she had considered surgery before. She had thought about getting her eyelids done, about a lower facelift, but in the end, she decided not to. She said if she changed her face, she'd lose her authority. That moment went viral. Some people attacked her, others called her brave, but she didn't flinch. Her words turned into a movement. She wasn't just aging naturally. She was fighting for every woman who ever felt pressured to look younger, just to feel worthy. Her work didn't stop there. She had earned her degree in tech, and now she was using it to fight something new: artificial intelligence. In 2023, she founded Credo 23, a group that demanded AI-free film. She believed AI would kill real art in Hollywood. During the Hollywood strikes, she showed up to the picket lines. She helped SAG-AFTRA understand the dangers of AI, not just to actors, but to everyone who works behind the scenes. She even started the Credo 23 Film Festival, where no AI-made content is allowed. She wasn't just talking, she was leading the fight. But this fight wasn't just about the future. It was also about her past. In 2017, her short film 5 Minutes won critical acclaim and helped her prove she could direct. That film, and another one called Push, gave her the momentum she needed to finally bring Violet to life. She had built her career back up from scratch, using short films as proof that she could deliver. Investors believed in her, and she delivered on every promise. By November 2024, she had seen enough. She wrote a powerful piece for Fast Company, saying what others were too scared to say. She said Hollywood was dead. She said streaming and AI had destroyed it, that studios only cared about billion-dollar blockbusters, that storytelling had been sacrificed for money. At the RAP's 2025 conference, she went even further. She warned that AI would take over entire departments. She said it might even replace the actors themselves, and no one could say she didn't know what she was talking about. She had the degree, the experience, and the courage to call it out. Now at 59, Justine Bateman stands for something much bigger than acting. She stands for truth. She stands for real aging. She stands for the power of starting over. She says every wrinkle on her face shows determination, creativity, life. When she walks into a room now, it's not about being young or pretty. It's about saying, this is who I am. I'm not going anywhere. And somehow through it all, she's just getting started.